Imagine standing at the crossroads of history, facing a single question that has shaped civilizations, inspired revolutions, and transformed billions of lives across thousands of years. Who was Jesus of Nazareth, and why does his story continue to captivate humanity like no other? Was he simply a remarkable teacher, a revolutionary prophet, or something far greater than the human mind can fully comprehend? These are not merely religious questions. They are historical, philosophical, and deeply personal ones. Today, we are going to journey through the evidence, both historical and spiritual, to explore what we actually know about this extraordinary figure. We will examine ancient documents, secular records, and profound theological insights to understand why, more than 2,000 years after his life on earth, Jesus of Nazareth remains the most discussed, debated, and transformative person in all of human history. Let us begin. To truly understand Jesus, we need to step back into the world he inhabited. It was first-century Judea, a land under the iron grip of Roman occupation. This was a volatile, politically charged environment where religious tensions ran high and the Jewish people longed for liberation. Into this world, Jesus of Nazareth emerged from a small, often overlooked town in Galilee. Now here is something important to establish right from the beginning. Jesus was not simply a figure invented by religious devotion. He was a real, breathing historical person whose existence is acknowledged by secular historians who had absolutely no motivation to promote Christianity. These were outside observers, Roman and Jewish writers, who documented his life and impact independently of any religious agenda. This is where our evidence-based exploration truly begins, grounded not in blind faith, but in historical examination. What makes the case for Jesus particularly compelling is that the evidence extends well beyond religious texts. Roman historian Tacitus, writing around 116 Anno Domini in his work Annals, made a striking reference to Christ during his account of Emperor Nero's persecution of Christians. Tacitus wrote that Christ, from whom Christians derived their name, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of Pontius Pilate. Now consider the significance here. Tacitus was no Christian sympathizer. He actually viewed Christianity with contempt, making his acknowledgement even more credible as an unbiased historical record. This single passage from one of Rome's most respected historians independently confirms two critical facts: that Jesus existed and that he was executed under Pontius Pilate. When a hostile outside source corroborates the core claims of a historical figure, historians take serious notice, and rightly so. Alongside Tacitus, another remarkable confirmation comes from an unexpected source, a Jewish historian named Flavius Josephus. Writing in the late 1st century, Josephus produced a monumental work known as Antiquities of the Jews, a detailed account of Jewish history intended for Roman audiences. What makes his reference so significant is who he was. Josephus was not a Christian. He had no religious motivation to promote Jesus or his movement. Yet within his writings, he described Jesus as a wise man who had a following of both Jews and Greeks. This is extraordinary because it represents an outside observer, someone from a completely different tradition, acknowledging the real presence and influence of Jesus in history. When a non-Christian Jewish historian writing under Roman patronage references Jesus without theological bias, it adds another powerful and credible layer of external confirmation to the historical existence of Jesus of Nazareth. Now let us turn to the biblical accounts themselves, specifically the 4 Gospels written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. These documents are far more than religious writings. They function as primary source testimonies, composed within decades of the actual events they describe. Historians generally consider sources written closer to the events they record to carry greater credibility, and by that standard, the Gospels deserve serious examination. Matthew and John were direct disciples of Jesus, making them eyewitnesses. Mark wrote closely alongside Peter, one of Jesus' closest companions, while Luke conducted careful interviews with eyewitnesses before composing his account. When scholars apply the same critical methodology used to evaluate other ancient documents, the Gospels consistently demonstrate remarkable reliability. Their honest portrayal of difficult moments, including doubt and failure among the disciples, actually strengthens their credibility as genuine historical testimonies rather than fabricated narratives designed purely for persuasion. Now, as we move from the written testimonies about Jesus, we arrive at one of the most extraordinary claims surrounding his life, that he lived completely without sin. But what does sinlessness actually mean? Theologically, sin refers to any thought, word, or action that falls short of a perfect moral standard. In human terms, it means every failure, every selfish choice, every moment of dishonesty or cruelty. And when we survey all of human history, from kings to philosophers to religious leaders, every single person has demonstrated moral failure in some form. No one escapes this reality. Yet Jesus stands in a category entirely alone. What makes this especially remarkable is not simply what his followers claimed about him, but what his enemies could not claim against him. Those who despised him, who watched his every move searching desperately for wrongdoing, came away empty-handed, unable to find a single genuine fault in the man. Building on the concept of Jesus' sinlessness, what makes this claim truly extraordinary is that it was not just his followers saying it. His opponents desperately wanted to discredit him. The Pharisees, the most religiously rigorous people of their time, constantly watched Jesus, looking for any violation of the law they could use against him. They interrogated him publicly, tested him with trick questions, and monitored his every move. Yet despite their relentless efforts, they could never produce a legitimate charge. When Jesus stood before Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor who held the power of life and death, Pilate examined him thoroughly and declared publicly, "I find no fault in this man." That statement carries enormous weight. A Roman governor with no motivation to protect Jesus could not find a single legitimate accusation. That kind of testimony from adversaries is historically remarkable and deeply compelling. The sinlessness of Jesus carries profound theological weight that goes far beyond simply being a good person. Christian theologians throughout history have argued that living a completely sinless human life was not merely difficult, it was humanly impossible. St. Augustine and later John Calvin both emphasized that human nature, corrupted through what theologians call original sin, makes moral perfection unattainable for ordinary humanity. Yet Jesus navigated every temptation, every pressure, every moment of suffering without a single moral failure. Theologians like Karl Barth argued this was only possible because Jesus was not merely human, but fully divine, the eternal Son of God taking on human flesh. His sinlessness was not accidental, but essential to his identity and mission. This divine purity made him uniquely qualified as what the New Testament calls the perfect sacrifice, a spotless lamb whose offering could carry genuine redemptive power for all of humanity. Now that we have established the remarkable sinlessness of Jesus, we naturally arrive at the most extraordinary claims surrounding his life, the resurrection. Even among skeptical scholars who approach this topic purely from a historical standpoint, certain foundational facts are widely accepted. First, Jesus died by crucifixion under Roman authority, a method so thorough that survival was virtually impossible. Second, the tomb where he was buried was found empty just 3 days later. Third, numerous individuals reported seeing Jesus alive after his death, experiencing what they described as genuine physical encounters. Fourth, and perhaps most compelling from a historical perspective, the disciples of Jesus underwent a dramatic and undeniable transformation. These were ordinary men who scattered in fear the night Jesus was arrested. Yet within weeks they emerged as bold, fearless proclaimers of his resurrection. Something extraordinary must account for that change. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for the resurrection is the empty tomb, and what makes it especially powerful is that even the enemies of Jesus never denied it. In Matthew's Gospel, we read that the Jewish religious leaders bribed Roman soldiers to spread a specific story that the disciples had secretly stolen the body of Jesus while the guards were asleep. Now think carefully about what this actually reveals. They did not claim the tomb was still occupied. They did not produce a body to silence the growing movement. Instead, they invented an explanation for why the tomb was already empty. This is a remarkable and often overlooked admission. The very people who had the greatest motivation to disprove the resurrection indirectly confirmed the central fact that the tomb of Jesus was found empty. Their cover story actually strengthens the case for something extraordinary having occurred. Following the empty tomb, the post-resurrection appearances of Jesus provide another remarkable layer of evidence. Jesus first appeared to Mary Magdalene, then to his disciples, and in one extraordinary instance, to more than 500 people simultaneously. This account comes directly from the Apostle Paul, recorded in his first letter to the Corinthians. What makes this particularly significant is the timing. Paul wrote this within 20 years of the resurrection, at a point when many of those 500 witnesses were still alive. He essentially invited readers to go and ask them directly. This is not mythology developing centuries later. This is a verifiable, public claim made while eyewitnesses were still breathing and available for questioning. No ancient writer making a false claim would willingly point readers toward hundreds of living people who could immediately contradict the story. Building on those remarkable post-resurrection appearances, we must consider perhaps the most psychologically compelling evidence of all, the dramatic transformation of the disciples themselves. These were ordinary men who, at the moment of Jesus' crucifixion, completely fell apart. They fled in terror, denied knowing him, and locked themselves behind closed doors, paralyzed by fear of the same authorities who had just executed their teacher. Yet something extraordinary happened. Within just a few weeks, these same frightened individuals were standing boldly in Jerusalem, the very city where Jesus was killed, publicly declaring his resurrection to the crowds. They faced arrest, brutal persecution, and ultimately death for this testimony. People will sometimes die for something they believe to be true, but it is extraordinarily difficult to explain why these men would willingly suffer and die for something they knew to be a deliberate lie. Their transformation demands a genuine explanation. Now, skeptics have proposed alternative explanations to account for the empty tomb and the appearances. The swoon theory suggests Jesus never actually died, merely fainting on the cross and later reviving. But Roman soldiers were experts in execution, and medical analysis of crucifixion confirms death was certain. The hallucination theory proposes the disciples imagined seeing Jesus, yet hallucinations are deeply personal experiences, not shared simultaneously by 500 people at once. The stolen body theory, interestingly, was actually the earliest counter-argument circulated by Jewish authorities themselves, yet it raises an obvious problem. If the disciples had stolen the body, why would they willingly suffer imprisonment, torture, and death protecting a lie they personally fabricated? People do not die for something they know is false. Each alternative theory, when examined honestly against the complete historical evidence, collapses under scrutiny, leaving the resurrection as the most historically coherent and intellectually satisfying explanation available. When you bring together the sinless life of Jesus and the resurrection, something extraordinary emerges. No ordinary human being has ever lived without moral failure, yet Jesus did. No ordinary human being has ever risen from the dead with hundreds of witnesses confirming it, yet Jesus did. These two realities taken together form a remarkably powerful case for his unique divine identity. Consider the landscape of world religions. Buddha never claimed to be God. Muhammad never claimed to be sinless. No other religious founder had their death followed by verified empty tombs, mass appearances, and transformed disciples willing to die for their testimony. Jesus stands completely alone in history. He claimed to be the Son of God, lived a life that confirmed that claim, and then conquered death itself. The evidence does not point toward an ordinary teacher. It points towards someone genuinely unlike anyone who has ever walked this earth. We have walked through history, examined evidence, and wrestled with extraordinary claims. But ultimately, this journey is not about winning a debate or satisfying intellectual curiosity alone. It is deeply personal. The life of Jesus of Nazareth invites every single one of us to pause and ask ourselves what we truly believe. The evidence points powerfully towards someone unlike anyone who has ever lived, someone sinless, someone risen, someone who claimed to be the very Son of God. You do not have to have all the answers today. Honest seeking is where transformation often begins. Whether you are a lifelong believer, a curious skeptic, or somewhere in between, the invitation remains open. Keep asking questions. Keep examining the evidence. Approach the story of Jesus with an open heart and an open mind. The truth, if it is real, will hold up under scrutiny. And with Jesus, history suggests it does.